Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today, we're joined by Jason Scott, the CISO at Sectigo. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you being on. Before we get too far in, a quick words from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by cyberlynx.com. That's cyberlynx.com. Do you know if a hacker's in your system? Most people and most companies don't until it's too late and the hacker's already done damage. A hacker's job is to bypass your security, so companies need a way of knowing when someone's gotten past their security. That's where CyberLynx intrusion detection comes in. With our 24/7 security operations center, we use a combination of AI and cybersecurity technicians to see when a hacker successfully bypassed your security. So if a bad guy gets past your security, we'll know right away and be able to kick them out. Find out more at cyberlynx.com. That's cyberlynx.com. And now back to our show. Jason, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about Sectigo and your role there as CISO?
Yeah, so Sectigo, we are started off as a certificate authority. So started off as Komodo.net. Probably more people know Komodo than Sectigo. So we spun off from there. So now we're Sectigo, we're certificate manager, right? So we certificate authority. So we pride ourselves on managing certificates, issuing certificates. We have a sort of our bread and butter is really the certificate lifecycle management, right? So we have a product that allows us for our customers to manage certificates automatically, and that way you don't have to do all this stuff manually, right? Big companies that have 50, 60, 70, 100,000 endpoints. How do you manage those certificates, right? You don't want to be doing it by spreadsheets. Automation is the key, and that is our bread and butter with certificate lifecycle management.
I love it. Yeah, no, that is quite the task. Once you get above a handful of certificates, it's something. So with the certificate management, how long's that been the focus, or is that just Sectigo's focus and has always been?
It has been our focus for a very long time, even before now as we get closer and closer to 90-day certificates and ultimately 47-day certificates, which is going to be right around the corner. It's been our focus from the beginning, right? We've had a solid platform. We're known for it, and what's really cool about our product, our SCM, is we can manage anybody's certificates, right? It doesn't matter ours, Digi's, Apple's, anybody, right? We can manage anybody's certificates. So
nice. Well, let's dive into that a little bit, because I'm not sure everybody's familiar with the 90 and did you say 47-day certificates?
47 days, I believe. That's not on the ballot yet, but it is soon to be. 90 days are for sure coming. 47 days is probably not too far behind on the 90 days. So that's, if you don't have automation in place, you're going to have some bad days ahead.
Yeah, that'd be an absolute nightmare. So let's talk about that a little bit. What's the thinking behind it? What's the process? What can people expect? Why should they move in that direction?
So, obviously us moving in that direction, we're not going to have a choice, right? So the consortium pretty much says that what we're going to be doing. So it's pretty much made the decision we're going to 90 and probably 47. But what does that mean? That really means that you're going to have a really good handle on all your certificates in your environment, right? So if you got to change out your certificate every 90 days, like I said, spreadsheets are not going to be your friend. You're going to have automation in place, right? Because what the thinking is here is to shorten that span so that the attackers have less time, to attack vulnerabilities, right? So, it's reducing that span that's giving the attackers. Right now, a year is a very long time for an attacker to have an open door, right? So if you can reduce that, you reduce the chance of the vulnerabilities being taken on.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. And I guess that's where Sectigo comes in. I mean, that's you've got to have the automation. So there you go. Now, is that, let's just, and I'm not a sales pitch for Sectigo, but just for those who aren't familiar with it, what's that product look like for the and in terms of cost and rolling that out? What's it look like to go and use Sectigo to manage your certificates?
So I'm definitely not
Yeah,
a
I know.
sales guy. I'm definitely not. I couldn't tell you. I have a hard time figuring out the quotes myself because I have to review a lot of them and like I have no idea how they come up with that stuff, right? But we have multiple lines of business, right? So we have an enterprise business where we come in and kind of manage your certificate process for you, deploy it. We also have down markets, right? So we've got resellers that resell for us. We don't have the same products on both sides. We have the same back end, right? So it's not they're called different things, but in the end, it's both certificate lifecycle management down to the enterprise level. Even the small, very small businesses, we have a small product for that, right? So you don't have to buy the enterprise grade package. You do have smaller packages you can buy through our partners. So.
Love it. That's fantastic. So, one of the things I love is that we often get, we often interview CIOs and CISOs who, they've come to us from a variety, or they've come to the industry from a variety of different backgrounds. And, that mug, see, we're both old Army guys. And if you could, share with everybody your story of how you got into it, your old Army days, the whole nine yards.
So I think if we went through my whole Army time, we would go well beyond the 35, 45 minutes we're looking at today. But, I'm the guy that, I joined in high school to pay for college. So I joined the National Guard. I was 17 years old. Both my parents had to sign for me to join. So I joined the National Guard so I could go to college. Hands down, that was it. To get in, do my 6 years and get out. 35 years, 8 months later, I just retired last year. So I've been in National Guard, Reserve, and active duty. I've done it all. Everything from I joined as a chemical operations specialist. On my enlisted days as an officer, I was a logistician for a while. I did signal, IT for quite a few number of years, and then in 2003, I was over what at the time was the Army Computer Emergency Response Team, which doesn't really exist anymore, but kind of 2003, got my feet wet with cybersecurity and pretty much been there ever since. So most of it, I've been in, I've worked for Chevron. I actually helped stand up the red team at Chevron. I was a consultant with Capgemini. Well, my client was AIG, so did a lot of vulnerability management with AIG. And then the last 6 years I spent on active duty. The last year with U.S. Army Cyber Command. So kind of standing up some of their integration projects. So I've kind of made the roundabout way to get here. So not sure how I got here, but somehow I did. So.
Well, that's great. So now, I mean, you have like Chevron and then back to active duty. Is that because you were in the Guard, or how did that?
I was in the reserves at the time when I was working for Chevron. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, gotcha. And then you just switched over to active duty.
In 2016, I got mobilized for Operation Inherent Resolve. So I spent a year in Kuwait, which I never thought I was going to do again. So I spent a year in Kuwait. I came back, and the Army was standing up all of their National Guard and Reserve forces. So they asked me to come back and kind of help develop the Army Reserve side and build out Army Reserve cyber capabilities. Did that for about 4.5, 5 years, and then moved the last year over to U.S. U.S. Army Cyber Command. Sorry.
Wow, that's good stuff. I mean, It's funny. I joined same deal. I did delayed entry program when I was 17. Knew my junior year that's what I was going to do once I graduated, because we didn't have money for college. That wasn't on the table. My dad was a smart man, but a very poor businessman. Not the best, and so we simply didn't have money for college or much of anything, for that matter. And so the Army was my way out. It was great to me. I did 10 years active duty, and it was all intel. They taught me Spanish and Mandarin Chinese. It was fantastic. And then got out and off into the world of IT. And so it's nice. So when you were in, and you kind of transitioned, did you actually do any cyber training in the military to kind of transition over? Was it one of these things where you kind of sold your soul to move over into cyber, or how'd that work?
Um, all pretty much, I would say 90% of all my cyber training was from the Army, right? So
That's
this goes
awesome.
back like back to the days when I was with ACERT, right? So that really kind of started it, and just everything from here and there. Then I went to, I was a 17 Alpha cyber officer, cyber operations officer. So I got all that training. I was a 53 Alpha back in the day, which is systems automation officer. So, yeah, the Army pretty much, not only they pay for, my undergraduate degree, my grad degree, I've got 4 certificates, all paid for by the Army, plus the training. The Army has a lot of faults, but they do believe in education, right? So firm believer in using the military to get your education if you don't have the resources. And I'm just like you, didn't have the resources. Dad's like, look, you're on your own. So,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, exactly. No, they are really good at that. I mean, they're 100. I couldn't agree more. It does, it's not perfect, but what organization is, but they really do that well. It's funny. We often have conversations about corporate culture, and I'm interested to hear your take on this, having been in the Army for, as you said, like what, 35 years, and then coming into the corporate environment at a very senior level. What's been your take on that, because you see, that the Army culture is an entirely different culture altogether, and sometimes it's very hard for people to transition over to the civilian world, and then the corporate culture is specific, in and of itself, and each company is slightly different. What did you have an easy transition? Was it
So, yeah, that is the question. I actually get asked that question a lot. And luckily for me, I've gone in and out, right? So I was active duty for a while, then I was, then spent some time in the Guard Reserve in the civilian sector, came back on active duty. So I would say it was less of a transition, but it was still, if you look at the culture, like you said, the cultures are so different. Not having the, it's, you have coworkers, but you don't have the relationship like you have in the military, right? So when you spend 20, 30, 40 days together with somebody, or even on a deployment, you're going for, spend time with somebody, 18 hours a day for 9, 10 months. You just have a different level of relationship with people, right? Whether good or bad. It's not always a good thing, right? But having to tread those waters in, I would say it's even from company to company, I've noticed, right? Cultures are can be hard to break into. They can be very hard to change if you're trying to change a culture. Like from a security perspective, I'm in a security company, and it's still hard to change a culture, right? To be more security focused, right? So cultures can be good and obviously good and bad, but there is a significant difference between the culture in the military and the culture in a business, right? So it's just not as deep. The cultural relationships are not as deep, in the civilian sector, right?
yeah,
They can go really deep in the military.
Yeah, no, I think that is spot on. It really does. It really does go a lot deeper, and I think part of it is what you're going through, the intensity of it. It is, and that's just how it is. I mean, they've found that even even when you're dating somebody, if you go on a ride together, you do these adrenaline inducing activities. Like, let's say you're on a date and you go skydiving, the bond is going to be a lot stronger with that person just because you went through a more intense activity. And so with the military, there's a lot of intensity a lot of the time, and so there's a lot more bonding.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But
Absolutely.
let me ask you. So I think even going from company to company, there's cultural differences, whether it's company, civilian companies or even military companies. You move, there's cultural changes, and I think often today, when it comes to cybersecurity, and you kind of touched on it earlier, that it is really kind of building that culture of security, and a mindset of security. As you said, you're in a security company, and that's always a struggle. That's a struggle even there, which I think people will find alarming, but I don't, because same deal. It is something that everybody has to be constantly thinking of, whether you're baking cookies or you're, on the front lines of cyber defense. Security has to be on your, on your radar at all times. So have you had any great lessons learned that you can share with people on how to do that, or things that you're doing or have done or seen that you think are just great and more people should do?
So really what I've been really trying hard to work on is understanding my business, understanding the different divisions, having personal interactions. I actually do a significant amount of work with our sales team and marketing team, and I spend time with those folks to find out what are you guys doing? What are you going through? Why X, Y, Z, whatever it is, right? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? And kind of understand where they're coming from. So when I'm looking at it from a policy perspective, like your policies have to meet what your business is doing, right? So I'm like, you've got to understand what everybody's doing. You can't. What I've found is you really can't come in with military style policies and lay down the law, because the law will come right back at you, right? The business always wins. Yeah. So you really gotta use your relationships, to feed those kind of things, right? And that's what's been working for me. Well, I think it's working for me. I don't know yet for sure. As a matter of fact, next week will be my 1 year mark, so we'll see if I get it. They ring me on the second year or not. So, but that's kind of where I really focus on the relationships, and not be very forceful with a hammer, because it just doesn't work. And I noticed that, to be honest, I'll give you a perfect example. Just came to me when I was a consultant at AIG. Our head of department that we were in was like a hammer, like trying to get our program pushed down the throats and all this stuff, and it just did not go well at all. Like, people don't like that, even though he had a board directive. Wrong message, wrong way to do it, and ultimately didn't go well for him, right? So you can't always be a hammer with security.
No, that is true. So, I mean, and I think taking the personal approach to it, and because at the same time, now people feel like they have some buy-in. They've got a piece, they've told you what they go through, they've told you why they do it, how it, and then you've come to them with well, from a security perspective, we really need to do X, Y, and Z. We need to add this to that. How would that impact you? Can we make that work? Oh yeah, that's not a problem. Versus you decree it from Mount Olympus, and then people are shaking their fists at the gods because they're busy with their work, and they don't need one more thing to do. And why don't you just get out of their business and let them do their job? So
Absolutely.
I think that's spot on. And when it comes to people, and I think the Army is kind of, they've got lots of people, so they're kind of known for their leadership and their management of people. Have you found in the cyber side of things, or is that are there lessons learned there that you've drawn from the Army that you bring to the civilian world and say this is the way you do it?
So I do take this back to my many, many years in the Army. And to be honest, I take this back to when I was a sergeant. You build teams. You build teams from the bottom, right? And you grow your own people. You can't necessarily always have the right person or the right skills at the right time. You have to build that, right? So not just the technical part, but you got to build the leadership piece, right? You got to build the teamwork. For example, right now, so one of the things, my big focuses when I got here last year was, we have incident response plans and all, we have all this pretty stuff out there on paper, but we've never practiced it, right? So So that, we've had two incident response exercises this past year. We're going to have probably 2 to 3 more in 2025. When the proverbial poop hits the fan, right? If you haven't practiced and failed, you don't want to fail in the real, in the actual fight, right? So, and oh my goodness, when I say my guys, my team, I say guys, but actually they were all guys. They love it. They absolutely love doing incident response exercises. They don't necessarily like the paperwork part, but absolutely love working together and responding to a fake incident. Like, so it's been a great team building event.
That's great. And I think those are really invaluable. I mean, it's a live fire exercise, right? I mean, you're going through and you get to experience the thrill of it all in a safer environment. And like, oh, well, we need to, whatever it is, breach this door faster. We should have been better prepared for this. And like, oh crap, we didn't have this, procedure laid out at all. And I thought we had something on that.
But I will
right?
tell you, after every single event, we always have an after-action review. I have a third party that does it for us. And we find something every single time that, oh crap, we don't have this. We need this. We need that. We find something every time. And we've gone over our incident response plans with fine-tooth combs, and it's been reviewed by everybody, and we find something every time. Like, crap, how did we miss this before? Right. So
Yeah, it really is that everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, type thing. Like, yep, was a plan, but it fell to pieces. Even when you were expecting it, it's going to be a right hook. Oh, we're ready for the right hook. Oh, crap. Right. Yep. We weren't.
And no matter what, it's not, you're not, whatever you plan for, you're not going to get. That's not what you're going to get, right? They're going to come at you from a different angle. Just having gone through the process to know that you have processes in place that then you can change them, right? You can shift on the fly, and having that confidence to know it's okay, right? We weren't planning for this, we're not ready, but you know what? We'll deal with it.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely. So along with those, I mean, I think the incident response, plans and exercises are kind of invaluable. I've also had, tabletop exercises. I've found that a lot of people have found, great success getting, kind of corporate buy-in just by having that tabletop exercise and having, all the stakeholders there and, okay, fine. But then it's really eye-opening. And I'm kind of curious. I would imagine at your place, that's probably not so eye-opening. They're probably long since bought into this. But have you found that that's been the case with the,
So obviously we're a very, technology focused company. But that, if you think about it, from the leadership team, we still have finance, we have HR, we have sales. Well, we have most of our salespeople are pretty technologically savvy, right? Because we do sell security products. Actually, our head of sales is really strong. Like, he's like one of the top guys. Like, I'll consider him very knowledgeable. But that being said, we did one tabletop last year. We're probably going to do at least one more this year, maybe two. And like we give different focus, right? Different focus areas. One time is going to be all about, the certificate authority. How do you deal with that going down? Because we can't, right? We can't go down, right?
Nope.
Or the next time it's going to be, okay, SharePoint is out for next 22 days. What do you do? What processes do you have that are tied to SharePoint? Or next time might be something, Salesforce. I'm sorry, Salesforce is down. What are you going to do? Like, what do you mean it's down? How do you deal with that, right? So, we try and change it up to keep everybody, get everybody, that piece of that pie. So everybody gets the oh wow moment, like, oh crap, we don't have a process for that. So.
Yeah. And I think that the COVID, that time frame when ransomware became so prevalent, I think that really helped I think it helped the industry greatly. Sure. Because it got everybody realizing that there are real cyber threats out there that are, can be an existential crisis for the organization. And it's not just a bunch of worried geeks who are paranoid about everything, but it's a real issue. And we really need to consider security as an integral part of the operation, not just some expense on the line item on the budget. And I think we saw a huge shift during that time, but I'm curious of your perspective.
Oh, 100%, right? So that is the one thing that if you ask anybody on our leadership team is, ransomware is probably the number one threat, right? Because think about like in our environment. So even if you have offline backups, an offline backup for an hour ago means nothing to us, right? We're real time, right? We're
Yeah.
issuing thousands and hundreds of thousands of certificates at any given hour, right? So so those kind of situations, are extremely complicated. And ransomware, is a huge, huge wake up call. It was a huge wake up call, right? And if you think going forward, I think we're going to have a very, very large oh crap moment whenever we start thinking about post quantum, right? So if you're not thinking about post quantum now, it's probably too late because the with RSA, basically going to be deprecated here pretty soon. You know, there's got to be a complete overhaul of the entire infrastructure for certificates, hardware and software, right? So the certificates are going to be, I think, 4 to 5 times as large as they are today. So we have nothing that can handle that kind of algorithm, right?
Yeah.
So it's a big problem. It's a Y2K problem, Y2K size problem that I don't think has gotten the level of attention it needs yet. But it's going to be a huge, huge undertaking for the entire industry.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a real challenge. I tend to be very much on the optimistic, side of things where, I think even when whatever it is, I think that with our focus and technology, we end up finding the solution. It might not be what we thought it was going to be, but I mean, you take a look at even like a finite resource like land, right? Like the Japanese, very very finite amount of land, and they couldn't possibly have that many people in that small of a space, and yet it's technology that allows them to easily live there and have an abundance, and they learn to build taller, build better, be more efficient, and I think that applies to this situation. I'm cautiously optimistic that applies here as well, because just like Y2K, I'm hopeful that will be the outcome as well, that a lot of really bright people, much smarter than me, will, in the space, will figure it out, and then we will.
I think the issue is going to be the timing, right? I think the solution they will come up with a solution. It's just if RSA becomes deprecated next year as opposed to 3 years from now, we're going to be in a bad place, right? For those people that need to have secure communications, right? So
Yeah. No, this is true. This is true. It's the timing of the technology that will be king here. That's true. Well, let me ask you. So, what advice would you give to somebody, looking to come into IT or security? What advice would you give to the somebody looking to transition?
So I have this conversation all the time. So as a security guy, I like to hire people that have IT experience. And I'll tell you why. And this is a prime example. I had a conversation last week with security people that have never been in IT don't understand what it means to run an IT shop. It means keeping those dots blinking green and not amber is your lifeline, right? So that doesn't compute with somebody that's a pen tester and have only been in the cyber side, right? They don't that. There's no concept of that, right? So I like to hire security folks that come from an IT background for that reason, right? To understand when we're implementing policies or we're implementing solutions, there is an other side to this coin, right? The IT and the ops, the INO side, the IT corporate side. There are other aspects that have to go into consideration, and I also find that a lot of cyber folks don't have like the networking experience, the understanding of the networking side, big picture stuff, right? That you get when you work on the IT side. So my recommendation is always start in IT, but it's and I think that's part of the reason it's hard get into cybersecurity sometimes because
Hmm.
people like me are looking for somebody with IT experience, have grown into cybersecurity because you also get a chance to do a lot more things in IT and you experience more things because cyber, though cyber is large, it's not as big as IT, right? So, you get that experience and you learn what you like before because when you jump into cybersecurity, a lot of times you're jumping in, to a piece of the pie, right? You can get go down that rabbit hole pretty quick, just because that's the nature of the beast. At least coming from IT side of the house, you understand big picture. I really like XYZ, but I don't really like this over here. And I think that kind of, that's typically what I recommend, like starting IT. And if it's somebody fresh with no experience, always start the help desk.
Yep.
You can learn so much in a dang help desk, and people hate it, but you learn a lot on help desk.
You really do. I mean, it's kind of like that old, starting customer service. It's and the IT help desk is customer service, and it's tech. You build up the people skills, you build up the technical skills. I couldn't agree more. I think that is the best place for somebody to start. A lot of people want to come in and they want to start coding. Look, if you're great at coding, and you really like that, then so be it. Nothing wrong with that. But I still think there's much more value in starting at the help desk and building up those coding skills and then go into coding, because now you're going to bring so many more skills to the table, so much more understanding than just, Python. Great. You're good at Python. Fantastic. But you're more of an asset to to your manager and to the organization, when you've got those kind of fundamental skills down. Just because, heck, you'll be able to troubleshoot your own computer problems as well as,
That is very true.
if nothing else, right?
The other thing that you hit on is, the dealing with people, right? Those social skills. I can't tell you how many security people have a problem with dealing with people socially, right? It's that, and that help desk does help with that. It forces you to deal with people, right?
Yep.
So that was a great point.
Yeah, no, I always tell our folks that we're therapists first and technicians second. You want to talk them off the ledge, keep them from hurting themselves or others, and then help them with their problem and make them feel good at the same time, right? And so yeah, I think the help desk is invaluable. So great advice. Well, you know what, Jason, this has been absolutely fantastic. I've loved having you on the show. But before we go, can you tell everybody, where they can find out more about you and Sectigo?
Obviously, I'm on LinkedIn, and I get quite a few people reaching out every week, but I don't mind at all, especially if you're not a salesperson, right?
Yeah.
People actually want to actually talk about something other than sales. Sectigo, we're all over the place, Sectigo.com. We're worldwide. Like I said, certificate lifecycle management, is our bread and butter. So, if you're looking at how are you going to manage those 47-day certificates, definitely give us a call.
That's awesome. Well, again, Jason, thanks for coming on. Until next time.
All right. Thanks, Matthew.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.